It was supposed to be her first date, a night of laughter, new beginnings, maybe even love. But instead, it became the night she never came home. Emily Carter was 24, bright, kind, full of dreams. She told her mom she'd call after dinner. She never did. By morning, her car was still parked outside the restaurant, her phone dead, and Emily was gone. For 7 years, no one knew what happened, until one day, in a quiet town miles away, someone made a discovery that would finally reveal the truth. This is the story of Emily Carter, the girl who vanished after her first date and the secret that stayed buried for 7 long years. But before we dive into the full story, hit like, comment, and share, because what you're about to hear will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew.
Emily Carter grew up in a small town just outside Willow Creek, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew Emily. She was the youngest of 3 sisters, a quiet dreamer with a laugh that carried across a room. She loved animals, volunteered at the local shelter, and had plans to open her own photography studio one day. Her mom says Emily had a gift. She could see beauty in ordinary things. She saw light in places most people never noticed, her mother once said. Friends described her as dependable, a little shy, but always there when someone needed her. After a difficult breakup 2 years earlier, Emily had taken time for herself, focusing on work, family, and healing. By spring of 2016, she was ready to start fresh, ready to move forward. That's when she met him. It started online, simple messages, shared jokes, a feeling of connection. He seemed kind, polite, and patient, maybe too patient. But there were small things that made her friends uneasy. The way he texted late at night, the questions that felt a little too personal, the moments when his tone shifted from sweet to possessive. Emily brushed it off. He's just protective, she told her sister. He cares. No one knew then that this new chapter, her attempt to finally trust again, would be the beginning of something none of them could have imagined. Friday, April 14th, 2016. Emily spent the morning at work, clocked out early and stopped by her sister's house to borrow a pair of earrings. She seemed excited, nervous, but happy. Around 6:30 p.m., she called her mom on the drive home. "I'll tell you how it goes," she said. It was a short, ordinary conversation, but it would be the last time anyone in her family heard her voice. By 7 p.m., she was back in her apartment. Security footage from the lobby shows her leaving at 7:14, wearing a blue dress and holding a small clutch. She smiled at the camera before stepping into the night. The man she was meeting, Daniel Reeves, 28, said they planned to have dinner at a small Italian restaurant downtown. He told police later that Emily never showed up. But phone records tell a different story. At 7:32 p.m., Emily's phone connected to the restaurant's Wi-Fi. At 7:45, a text was sent from her number. "See you soon." After that, silence. Between 8 and midnight, her phone pinged in 3 separate locations, all within a 5-mile radius of the town's northern woods. Then it went completely dark. Her car was later found in the restaurant parking lot, keys still inside. Her purse was gone. The last person to see her alive was a waiter, who remembered her leaving alone. Or at least he thought she was alone. Somewhere between that short walk to her car and the edge of town, Emily Carter vanished. And from that moment on, nothing about the story made sense. When Emily didn't show up for work the next morning, her manager assumed she'd called in sick. By afternoon, her phone was still going straight to voicemail. That's when her sister, Rachel, drove to her apartment. The lights were off. Her bed untouched. Her keys missing. Rachel called their mom in a panic. Within hours, the family filed a missing person report. But police didn't see it as urgent. She's an adult. Maybe she just needed space. But the Carters knew better. Emily wasn't the type to disappear. She had a cat she adored, a job she loved, and plans that weekend to visit her grandmother. By day 3, the search was on. Volunteers gathered at the community center, friends, co-workers, even strangers. They scoured roadsides, rivers, and wooded trails. Flyers with her smiling face were posted on every corner of Willow Creek. Then, on the fifth night, a breakthrough, or what they thought was one. A jogger found a silver earring in the ditch off Highway 19, about 2 miles from the restaurant. Rachel confirmed it was Emily's. For a moment, hope surged. They thought they were close, but no other trace was found. Days turned to weeks. Detectives followed dozens of tips: a woman matching her description seen at a gas station, a supposed phone call from an unknown number. But each lead led nowhere. Then investigators uncovered something strange. The man she was supposed to meet, Daniel Reeves, had deleted his dating profile the day after Emily vanished. When questioned, he claimed he didn't want the attention. He seemed calm, too calm. His story was neat, almost rehearsed. He said they never met that night. He said he went home alone. But his phone location told a different story, one that placed him less than half a mile from the woods where Emily's phone last pinged. When detectives pressed him, he asked for a lawyer. And just like that, everything froze. Weeks passed, the searches slowed, the media moved on. For Emily's family, time stopped, trapped between hope and horror. It was as if the earth had swallowed her whole. But beneath the surface, buried under years of silence and unanswered questions, the truth was waiting to be found. By the second month, investigators had little more than theories, until a new detective joined the case. Detective Sarah Monroe had a reputation for noticing details others overlooked. She started from scratch, retracing Emily's last 24 hours, revisiting witnesses, and diving deep into her digital trail. What she found didn't add up. Her phone had stopped transmitting at 11:47 p.m., but the signal logs showed something strange. Between 8:30 and 10:25, her phone had moved through 3 cell towers, circling the outskirts of Willow Creek before stopping near a wooded area known as Miller's Grove. That same night, Daniel Reeves's phone had also pinged near Miller's Grove, less than 20 minutes apart. When questioned again, Daniel insisted he'd been home watching TV. But surveillance footage from a gas station near the Grove showed a car matching his, same make, same dent on the rear bumper, driving through at 9:02 p.m. Inside his apartment, police found a pair of hiking boots. On the soles, a thin layer of mud consistent with soil from the Grove. Still, without a body, the evidence was circumstantial. Investigators dug deeper. Emily's laptop revealed months of messages between her and Daniel. At first, they were sweet, compliments, shared jokes, plans for the future. But gradually, the tone changed. He began asking where she went, who she was with, why she took so long to reply. The last message he sent, hours before she disappeared, read, "If you cancel on me tonight, you'll regret it." Her reply came 4 minutes later. Simple, almost dismissive. "Relax, I'm on my way." After that, the chat ended forever. Detectives began mapping a timeline, from the moment she left her apartment to the last signal of her phone to Daniel's unexplained detour toward the woods. Then came the first false lead. A fisherman reported seeing a woman struggling with a man near the lake that night. Police searched the entire area, bringing in dogs and divers. They found nothing but an old jacket tangled in reeds. Hope, once again, slipped away. Over the next months, the investigation stalled. The public's attention faded. But one thing stood out to Detective Monroe: a single deleted folder recovered from Emily's cloud backup. Inside were screenshots, messages she'd saved. Most were between her and Daniel, but one was from an unknown number. A message sent 2 days before she vanished. It read, "You shouldn't trust him." That single text would become the first real clue, and the thread that years later would unravel everything. With no body and no confession, the case of Emily Carter spiraled into a maze of theories, each one more unsettling than the last. The first and most obvious suspect was Daniel Reeves. He had motive, opportunity, and a web of lies that kept tightening. But when detectives searched his car, they found no traces of blood, no DNA, no physical evidence linking him directly to Emily. It was as if he'd cleaned his life spotless. Yet something about him didn't sit right. Neighbors told police he was quiet, polite even, but they remembered strange things. Late-night trash runs, heavy bags dragged to the dumpster, lights flickering on at 3 a.m. Yet every time police circled back, Daniel had an alibi. He'd left town the following week for a family emergency. His lawyer handled the rest. Without proof, he walked free. The second theory pointed to someone else, a co-worker named Mark Henson. Mark had admired Emily for months, often finding excuses to visit her desk or bring her coffee. Investigators discovered he'd messaged her several times the week she disappeared. In one text, he had written, "You don't need dating apps. Some people around you care more than you know." When questioned, Mark said he meant it as a joke. He passed a polygraph, but suspicion lingered. Then came a third, darker theory, that Emily's disappearance wasn't about love or jealousy at all. A small group of online sleuths began connecting her case to two other disappearances within a 50-mile radius.
All young women, all last seen near Miller's Grove. Could there have been a serial predator operating under the radar? Police followed the lead, but every connection broke down. Different counties, different timelines, no forensic overlap. Still, the resemblance was impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Emily's family lived in limbo, holding vigils, organizing searches, appearing on morning shows. Her mother said she could feel Emily was still out there. "I just know," she told reporters. "A mother always knows." But as months turned into years, the hope began to thin. Tips stopped coming in. Media coverage moved on to the next tragedy. Even Daniel Reeves disappeared from sight, moved out of town, changed his name, started over somewhere new. For nearly 7 years, silence became the only thing that remained. And then, one ordinary afternoon, hundreds of miles away, that silence broke. 7 years is a long time to live without answers. After the first year, Emily Carter's name began to fade from the headlines. The posters came down, the search parties stopped, and the reward fund dried up. The world moved on, but her family couldn't. Every April 14th, they gathered at the same park where Emily used to take photos of sunsets. They lit candles, shared stories, and prayed. Her mother always left a note tied to a white balloon that simply read, "Still waiting." Detectives cycled in and out of the case, each one promising a new start. Files were reopened, re-examined, and eventually closed again. There were tips, always tips, from psychics, strangers, and anonymous callers who swore they'd seen her in bus stations or grocery stores. None ever led anywhere. Even Daniel Reeves moved on. He left Willow Creek, changed jobs, and remarried. To the world, he was just another man with a painful past. But for Detective Sarah Monroe, the case never really ended. Every few months, she'd pull the files from her shelf and go over them again. The texts, the timelines, the maps. She was convinced they'd missed something. And she was right. In late 2023, a construction crew began clearing an old property 200 miles south of Willow Creek. An old abandoned farmhouse set for demolition. When one of the workers moved a piece of rusted sheet metal, he saw something strange buried beneath the dirt. At first, he thought it was just debris, but when he brushed away the soil, he saw fabric, then bone. The police were called immediately. Within hours, the site was sealed off with yellow tape. Detectives combed through the area, recovering what appeared to be personal belongings: a faded blue dress, a silver earring, and an old phone case, cracked and covered in mud. Forensic teams worked through the night. DNA results would take weeks to confirm, but one thing was clear. After 7 long years, someone had just uncovered a secret that refused to stay buried. And when the tests finally came back, one name ended the silence: Emily Carter. The results arrived on a gray Thursday morning. DNA taken from the remains matched Emily Carter. After 7 years of silence, she had finally been found, buried beneath the floorboards of an abandoned farmhouse 200 miles away from where she vanished. The discovery reopened everything. Detectives pored over the site, mapping every inch of the property. They found the shallow grave beneath what used to be a kitchen. The dirt carefully packed, the boards nailed down from the inside. Whoever hid her there knew the house well. Near the remains, investigators recovered a torn scrap of paper with half-faded writing. Only 2 words were legible: "I'm sorry." Forensics dated the burial to the same week she disappeared. There were no signs of a struggle inside the house, no fingerprints, no recent utilities. The perfect place for a secret to stay hidden. But the biggest revelation came from the phone case buried beside her. Inside, sealed in mud, was her SIM card, corroded but intact enough for digital recovery. When analysts extracted the data, they uncovered messages that had never been seen before. Unsent drafts and deleted texts from the night she vanished. One message, time-stamped 8:47 p.m., read, "He's not who I thought he was. I'm scared." The phone died minutes later. Investigators traced the farmhouse's ownership records and found that the property once belonged to Daniel Reeves' uncle, the same man who had passed away 3 years earlier. With that connection, detectives obtained a new warrant. They began retracing Daniel's movements the week of Emily's disappearance, comparing old phone data with recent forensic maps. The patterns matched. Every tower ping, every gap in his story. For years, he had lived free, believing the truth was buried forever. But the dirt he thought would hide his secret had preserved it instead. And what came next would finally expose the man who'd hidden behind 7 years of lies. When detectives knocked on Daniel Reeves's door, he didn't seem surprised. For years, he'd built a new life, a new job, a new girlfriend, a new city. He smiled at the officers and said, "Is this about Emily?" before anyone had spoken her name. Inside the interrogation room, Daniel stayed calm, too calm. He denied knowing where Emily was, but his voice cracked when investigators showed him the photograph, the house, the old floorboards, and the pendant that once hung around Emily's neck. The room fell silent. Then Daniel whispered, "I just wanted her to stop screaming." Over the next 6 hours, he confessed to what had happened that night. Emily had met him for dinner, but an argument started when she mentioned ending things. He followed her out to her car, begging her to talk. She refused. Somewhere between anger and panic, everything went dark. He told police he didn't mean to hurt her, that he lost control. But the evidence told a different story. He had cleaned the scene, driven her body across state lines, and buried her beneath his uncle's old farmhouse floor, a place he knew no one would visit. For years, he carried on as if nothing had happened. He moved houses, switched jobs, even attended vigils for her disappearance. When detectives asked him why, he said, "Because she was going to leave me, and I couldn't stand it." In court, Daniel Reeves showed no emotion as the verdict was read. Emily's family wept quietly in the front row. After 7 years of uncertainty, they finally had the truth, but no peace. Her mother said softly, "Now we can bring her home." Outside the courthouse, the wind picked up. The same kind of gray, cold wind from the morning she vanished. And though justice had finally spoken, the echo of that night, her laughter, her last text, her fear, still haunted everyone who knew her. 7 years of searching. 7 years of questions with no answers. And in the end, the truth wasn't found in a courtroom. It was buried beneath old wood and silence. Emily Carter's story isn't just about what was lost. It's about what remains. The laughter of a daughter who loved life. The courage of a mother who refused to stop looking. The hope of a community that kept her name alive when the world moved on. For every missing persons poster that fades in the rain, there's a family still waiting for that call, that one piece of evidence that might finally bring them home. And for Emily, that call finally came. Her memory now lives in a foundation started by her family, helping other families of the missing find answers before it's too late. Because every vanished soul deserves to be found. Every story deserves an ending. This one just took 7 years to tell.
Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, share it. Not just for Emily, but for every family still waiting in the dark. You never know, your voice might be the one that helps bring someone home.